Welcome to the Tyler Werner Show, discussing all the latest in Philadelphia sports.
So you're saying there's a chance?
No.
I guess anything can happen in the NFL playoffs, right? Especially when you are hosting throughout in the NFC, provided you win. I think what we've seen the last couple of weeks here to close out the regular season against inferior opponents just goes to show you why Carson Wentz was a leading candidate for MVP this season. As the offensive struggles that have persisted the last couple of weeks have just made my confidence erode that this Eagles team can really go anywhere in the playoffs. They're going to have to rely on the defense for one thing to be absolutely stellar, and I don't think the secondary can be absolutely stellar. When quarterback play really decides a lot in the playoffs, perhaps more than it does in the regular season. And the fact that the Eagles are probably going to need Nick Foles to make a decent amount of plays leads me to believe that this Eagles team is a one and done, unfortunately.
And now, here's Tyler Werner.
And welcome all to the Tyler Werner Show, the first edition of 2018. Here we are, a new year already. Certainly had its ups and downs, especially in the world of Philadelphia Eagles football, and unfortunately, in recent weeks, as I anticipated, we have hit a down, really, and I think that it just all crystallized this past New Year's Eve when the Philadelphia Eagles get shut out at home. And I know, look, they had home field advantage wrapped up, and that's all well and dandy. They were going to do that, right? When they lost to Seattle, it's like, well, you know what? They're going to bounce back. They're going to beat the Rams, even though it was a tough one. Even though I had some doubts about that game, I still pictured it. They were going to beat the Rams, and they were going to have home field advantage nevertheless. But that win came at that huge price of Carson Wentz tearing his ACL. And although home field advantage was still eminent from me and from many of our perspectives, the Super Bowl aspirations no longer were eminent for me. And that has just become more clear the last couple of weeks. On Christmas night, when granted the Eagles' defense made tons of plays, but against a dysfunctional Oakland Raiders team that just fired Jack Del Rio after a disappointing 6-10 finish. And then, against the Dallas Cowboys on New Year's Eve. I know that this served kind of like a preseason game in a way, where you just wanted to get a lot of your starting guys some reps, which I thought was fine because, you know, a quarterback like Nick Foles, who maybe needs all the preparation in the world, they're already not going to be playing this weekend. So you don't get Nick Foles out there at all. That's 2 weeks in a row where he's coming off ice cold. in their first playoff game in the divisional round against to be determined. I think it's going to be the New Orleans Saints. And rather unfortunately, I think it's going to be like a deja vu situation from Chip Kelly's first year, when all that 27-2 and whatnot, this newfangled offense was kind of shoved up everyone's tail around here by a more playoff experienced Drew Brees and a team with playmakers. This Saints team has playmakers. I mean, this defense, yeah, it can make plays, but the secondary, again, in the playoffs, it is mostly about the quarterback performance. Year after year. That's the bottom line. And I'm sorry, but anyone's holding out hope for Nick Foles that he's going to pull off some kind of miracle. It just, I don't see it at all. The only chance that the Eagles have is if their defense is absolutely on point, where the secondary is on point. And look, I know guys like Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, they some stalwarts on this front seven that can make plays, that can make game-changing plays. But you can't necessarily rely solely on that in the playoffs. The quarterback's got to make some plays. And I don't know where Nick Foles is going to be able to make plays. The running game is another, like, you got to rely on this defense to be absolutely stellar. But you also have to rely on the running game to be absolutely stellar. And, yeah, overall it's been good. Don't get me wrong. But it's got to be good right out of the gate. And the Eagles, like, again, it's predicated on an elite defense. And the Eagles' defense has been pretty good. At times, they've been elite looking against a lot of inferior opponents. But this Eagles, like, I don't see them holding Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints and that running game and those receivers. I don't see them. I don't see the Eagles' defense holding them to 10 points. To the point where, maybe the Eagles can pull off a 13-10 victory. I don't see it at all. And I know that's how the Philadelphia Eagles team itself. I know that's how Coach Doug Peterson. I know that's how LeGarrette Blount on Twitter or whatever. I know that's how this Eagles team can't think. And I wouldn't demand that this Eagles team just throw in the towel and say Nick Foles isn't good. That's not realistic. But what they certainly don't understand, Nick Foles is not Carson Wentz. It just goes without saying. And you can't say in press conferences, and you just can't game plan. You can't act like, oh, well, we'll just do the same things with Nick Foles as we do with Carson Wentz, and it's going to play. No. Unfortunately, this playbook, the offensive playbook, really shrinks when you have Nick Foles under center. I'm sorry.
What the hell?
That's just the reality of the situation. I mean, you got to watch. You had to have watched, even just the first quarter against the Cowboys. Yeah, he came out the first couple throws. He made some, a couple good throws, but anything of somewhat significant length throwing the ball just doesn't have the kind of zip that it needs to have. And then it comes to mobility with Nick Foles. And then, I mean, you saw it for 4 freaking quarters on Christmas night. Yeah, as nice as it was to see the Philadelphia Eagles get home field advantage there. See jolly old St. Nick put up a rather pedestrian performance, mind you. But just to see that for 4 quarters, it just kind of, watching that game just kind of wore me down, frustrated me. And I'm there watching with my pop, some of my family, and we're just thinking this, like, it's over. They're not this kind of quarterback play. This kind of offense, it's not going to cut it in the playoffs. It barely cuts it against the Oakland Raiders, who were just eliminated from playoff hopes prior to that game. Coming from the West Coast to the East Coast on Christmas night. The Eagles barely skated by them as they were there to wrap up home field advantage. Nick Foles, he looked immobile as heck. Pressure's coming at him. He can't get out of he can't even slide in the pocket. It's just unfortunate. That's the way it is. He was like caving in and just like taking the sacks. Like, look, Tom Brady, he doesn't have decent legs like Carson Wentz or other quarterbacks who can run, but he at least can slide in the pocket. He can make a quick little zip to the left or the right or whatever to avoid a sack. And then, boom, throw the ball down the buy a little extra time. Foles just can't really do that at all. And I don't care, look, what people want to say about this Cowboys game. Like, oh, well, Nate Sudfeld showed some mobility, and he had a run of 22 yards and whatnot, and maybe it could have been more. Like, are we seriously looking for a silver lining out of that shutout game? They didn't even get in the red zone all game long. And I know it was a meaningless game, but geez, anytime you see a shutout like that, regardless of who or who isn't playing or who isn't hurt, that's not good. You didn't put a point on the board. Yeah, the defense, second, third teamers, whatever, they were keeping the Cowboys in check, I guess you could say. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott had his yardage, but they only let 6 points on the board. That's great. But when it comes to the playoffs, when you're going to be facing teams for real who are trying to get to the Super Bowl, who have, a top 10 quarterback in the league, and other playmakers perhaps on offense, or an elite defense like the Minnesota Vikings, what do you expect is going to happen? I mean, the Eagles, they could play Drew Brees in the first round. They could play Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons. Not saying the Falcons are elite either, but Matt Ryan, playoff experience, top 10 quarterback in the league. He's got Julio Jones. He hasn't been a touchdown machine this year, but he's still Julio Jones. They got a good running attack, Devontae Freeman. Even Tevin Coleman a little bit as a second-string change-up back. Mohamed Sanu, I mean, solid squad there. Saints, of course, hosting the other wild card team. Well, it's the Panthers that the Saints will be hosting. And look, the Panthers, I don't know, Cam Newton has been up and down this year, but still, in a playoff situation, it's better than what the Eagles have on paper. And I don't know if a revenge factor maybe kicks in a little bit too, given the Eagles beat them earlier in the season in their own building. But again, more pedigreed quarterbacks that you're going to have to defend and face here. And you're going to bring, I'm sorry, but you're bringing Nick Foles to battle here? I mean, again, I hate to put the guy down, but that's just where we're at. You look around the league and all these teams in the playoffs, minus the Buffalo Bills and maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars, for the most part, these teams have among the better quarterbacks in the league or the best quarterbacks in the league. Like Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. But you got Nick Foles, your backup. It's hard for any team, especially when you go from Carson Wentz, who still finished with more touchdown passes, I believe, than Tom Brady did this season. Missing the last 3 games. So, that says something. Carson Wentz was having a great season. An MVP caliber season for sure. And when you go from him to Nick Foles, who has been a glorified backup the last few years in this league, that's all. I don't want to put him down. I don't want to put the Eagles down. But it's the reality of the situation. I can't fake it. I can't fake. I want to see the Eagles win. I want to see somehow that, they shut the opponent down, but I can't set myself up for this false hope that they're going to get it done. I remember a few years ago when the Eagles were hosting the New Orleans Saints in the wild card round of the NFL playoffs. And, thinking, well, you know what? There is a realistic chance here the Eagles win this game. I'm not going to expect them to go to the Super Bowl here, year one. The defense not quite being up to par yet. Needing some obvious improvements. But now it's just more evident to me that this Eagles team this season, with what they have at quarterback, is just not going to get it done. I mean, how in the Christmas Eve or Christmas night game, how does Alshon Jeffrey not even get one ball all night? And then they continue to have to throw and try to nickel and dime him. While Nick Foles, with Zach Ertz out of the flat, standing no more than 3 yards away from him, Nick Foles throws it practically over Ertz's head so that he has to jump for it, and that close of a distance isn't going to have time to jump for it. I mean, it's just that Raiders game just kind of told it all to me. It's going to be cold weather here. I just checked the temperature before the show began here, and 25 degrees. That's by today. What standards of what we had lately? That is warm. I mean, lately we've had lows that we can count with our fingers. Friday, it's going to be 12 high, 1 low, 1 degree low. Windy here in Brecknock Township of Lancaster County. Saturday, 12, low of 0. Sunday, it's all right. It's going to 19, low 16. Still,
oh man,
you get the point. And it's supposed to warm up a little bit this coming week, but still, it's going to be. I'm sure it's going to be chilly. Maybe we'll have some bad weather conditions at Lincoln Financial Field next Saturday at 4:30 when the Eagles host this first round playoff game. But I'm sorry, Nick Foles in cold weather, I don't think is going to bode too well. And I think we've seen that the last couple of weeks. And perhaps we'll hear what Doug Peterson, Nick Foles, we'll see what kind of confidence they can exude from their press conferences this week. As I guess they try to explain the hope that they have. And that's what they got to do. They can't you can't throw in the towel. You got home field advantage. That's great. Even though the majority of that dream was essentially built and centered around quarterback Carson Wentz, in combination with the defense playing rather well. But again, with Carson Wentz at quarterback, making plays week in and week out. You don't have that with Nick Foles. You're not going to have that in the playoffs. What, is Nick Foles going to turn into Houdini? Is he going to make the same kind of plays Carson Wentz was making? You know, is he just hiding something? Has he been hiding this, like, hidden skill set all these years and we haven't... Come on. But nevertheless, we'll hear Doug Peterson out. Maybe we'll hear Nick Foles out a little bit on the Tyler Werner Show today. As Wild Card Weekend is upon us, I'll make my picks for the week. See who's moving on. Essentially, that will include who I think is going to move on to play the Philadelphia Eagles in the divisional round. And, unfortunately, beat them. It's the Tyler Werner Show. We'll be back on the other side after this. Stay tuned for more.
Okay, Rocco, pretend I'm the girl that you want to ask out on a date.
How about maybe you and I, maybe we go out together, get something to eat, I don't know, maybe laugh a little bit, who knows, you know? I don't know, would you like to maybe, you want me to go out together? What do you think? Would you like to?
You need to make more eye contact and you sound way too nervous.
You want to hear me say it? You want to break me down? All right, I'm afraid. For the first time in my life, I'm afraid.
Having a tough time asking out ladies? You need to see Clubber Lang for a lesson.
Hey, woman. Hey, woman. I bet you stay up late every night dreaming you had a real man, don't you? I tell you what, bring your pretty little self over to my apartment tonight, and I'll show you a real man.
Build confidence with the ladies like never before with Clubber Lang's dating services. The most highly recommended in all of the Delaware Valley.
I am ranked number one. One! That means I'm the best.
The champion of game day catering is the official meatball of the Tyler Werner Show, Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs.
We prepare our balls over time, and that's the essence of the preparation.
On top of that, another trademark of Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs is Brady's signature rubbing process.
When I pick balls out, to me, they're perfect. I don't want anyone touching the balls after that. I don't want anyone rubbing them. To me, those balls are perfect. What is a concern is the texture of the balls, and again, that's the point that Tom hit on hard.
The champion of all game day catering dishes is Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs, the official meatball of the Tyler Werner Show.
No chance, that's what you got. You up against a machine too strong. Pretty politicians buying souls.
And we're back on the Tyler Werner Show as we are approaching the wild card weekend in the 2017/2018 NFL playoffs. And regardless of who the Eagles are going to end up playing, do they really stand a chance? With the way Nick Foles looks, and not just the way, but just the way, just his pedigree in general at quarterback, when you're going to have to face either Drew Brees or Matt Ryan, perhaps, or Cam Newton, you're going to have to face one of those quarterbacks from the NFC South, and to me, it's just not very promising. This secondary we've seen in recent weeks as well have more struggles than it had a little earlier in the season. And I hate to say it, I don't have any optimism in how the Eagles are going to be able to pull off some kind of win against any of those opponents in the first round of the NFL playoffs this year for the NFC. And their first round, which will be the divisional round. I forget they have home. It's easy to forget, in a sense, that the way they've been looking without Carson Wentz. I mean, if this is the team that they had out there all year long, not a playoff team, the way they've looked in recent weeks. So, I don't know. Let's hear from Doug Peters. Let's see if maybe he can spark some kind of optimism as we turn the calendar to the new year, 2018, following the Eagles getting shut out against the Dallas Cowboys. And here's Doug Peterson from yesterday, Tuesday's press conference, right here on the Tyler Werner Show.
Good afternoon. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Doug, with having played the Panthers already and the Falcons last year, have you kind of zeroed in on preparing for the Saints this week?
Yeah, we're going to take a look, obviously, at New Orleans. Kind of go back and break them down a little bit. Carolina, as you said, we've already played this year. Atlanta, we know from a year ago, and so we know the three teams. It's just a matter of we don't want to peak too soon. Obviously, we still have some work to do and some corrections that we can make this week. But we'll definitely take a look at those teams.
When Nick Foles had his best year, 2013, Chip Kelly had him do a lot of one-read, quick throw type of tempo stuff. Do you consider even more up-tempo to get him in a rhythm, to get him settled in quicker? Yeah, I've
gone back and watched a lot of his tape. Here, St. Louis, when he was here before. When I was here, and just wanted to go back and just see the types of plays. And as you mentioned, the quick throw was there, a little play action pass, the shotgun stuff, and those are all things that are in our system, and we might just have to dust a few more off and get that ready to go. But and that's kind of what this week is for, to get some of those ideas and thoughts down on paper and execute them this week in practice.
Just to be clear, Doug, Nick is your starting quarterback going forward for the first playoff game?
Yes.
Doug,
let's be clear.
Stranger things have happened. Just asking.
Doug, there are reports that Jim Schwartz and John DeFilippo could interview for jobs this week. How do you balance getting them, focused on the playoff game and on still letting them, focus on trying to go through that interview process?
Well, having gone through it a couple years ago myself, I think the one thing that's going for these two gentlemen is the fact this is a bye week for us, and we're not game planning, specifically for a game this weekend, and so it's a little bit easier from the standpoint of that. The challenge is obviously, having themselves prepared for a potential interview, and that's the challenging part. But at the same time, they have to balance the job that they have here and making sure that we're ready for practice tomorrow and the next day, and that's first and foremost. And they listen. They put the Eagles first anyway, and they're going to continue to do that while they're here. So it's a little bit of a fine line, but having an off week helps.
How about tempo specifically with Nick? Is that something that you feel like he thrives in and maybe could be incorporated a little bit more?
Yeah, I think he does. I think any quarterback does. I mean, Carson obviously has thrived in it when we go up tempo. Something we'll look at and spend some time this week, putting our guys in that position.
When Carson went down, you made sure that you didn't want to change the offense too much because that's what you guys do. But now with Nick, you've had a couple weeks with him, and you're going to have him in the playoffs. Is it more important now to kind of tailor it to fit his strengths?
Yeah, I mean, we've got some good work obviously the last couple of weeks with Nick, and we'll go back and evaluate all of that. We have to get better in the run game. That helps any quarterback, obviously. So we got to get better there, and then just taking a look at what his strengths and weaknesses, and make sure that we're, everything at this time of the year now becomes magnified even more now that you're going into the postseason. So we got to make sure that we're doing our due diligence as a staff to put our guys in successful position.
Are you expecting everyone to be at practice tomorrow in terms of injuries?
They'll be there. We got a couple guys that are still nursing some injuries. Yeah.
Some of the players after the game talked about they're actually looking forward to getting back in the pads, this week. What's your plan there? You want to maximize that once this week, once next week?
Yeah, it's again, it's a fine line, but at the same time, this is something that the players want. It's not a punishment thing. It's not coming directly from me. It's what the players want. And I listen to my guys, and I think they understand that there's a sense of physicality that we have to get back to. I'm not saying that we're not there, because obviously football is a physical game, but I think there's a sense over the course of a few weeks when you've been in shells, pad level begins to rise, intensity sometimes can be minimized, and so you get back into pads, sort of refocuses the guys just a little bit, and that's totally, it's not like we're going to tackle, and it's not a training camp type practice, but the fact of just having them on, banging around on one another, still protecting each other, I think is can be a nice asset for us going into our first game.
In your experience, is that different than what teams you've been on teams you've heard about normally do at this time of the year?
Everybody's different. Some people give the entire week off. Others do meetings. Some people just do walkthrough. Some people do shells. So everybody's a little bit different. I go back to my days, even when I played in Green Bay. There were times when coaches put us in pads for a day or for a practice during a bye, just to kind of get everybody back on the same page. And so it's a little different for everybody, but this is the decision that I've made, and we'll stick with that.
So, Paul, what have you seen from the way LeGarrette has kind of adapted to his new role, especially like the last few weeks where it seems like Jay's been getting like the bulk of the carries and everything?
Except for the last game.
Right.
No, LeGarrette has embraced his role. I tell you what, he's been a pleasant surprise, particularly with the younger guys. He understands his role. He's going to be a big part of the success, and has been a big part of the success, this year already. He's been to the pinnacle. He's been there. He understands it, what it takes, and those are the things that I'm going to lean on him with our team, with the guys that haven't been there, how to practice, how to prepare, and so he's really done a nice job in his role.
If I could follow up on Moshe's question about Nick, you've seen Nate play now for 3 quarters. If Nate doesn't play any better, is there a point where you would consider making a change in a playoff game?
If Nate doesn't play any better, Nate probably won't. Nick.
Did I say Nate? I'm sorry.
He said Nate.
If Nick doesn't play any better, say for a half, 3 quarters, is that something you would consider?
It's hard to say right now, and until I'm in that situation. Quite honestly, listen. It's a 1-game season, and it's hard to be in desperation mode. But if you're in that mode, who knows? I do know this: it's not about one guy. One guy. It's about 11 on offense, defense, and special teams. So a lot of contributing factors go into winning a game.
All right, so there was Doug Peterson. Decent chunk of that. Interesting question at the end about the possibility of bringing Nate Sudfeld in, benching Nick Foles, if that would be the case. And, maybe unlike a past coach that we had here, kind of saying, well, it depends on the situation. Who knows? But I don't know. The beginning of that press conference, Doug Peterson said about, dusting off some of these plays, these dink and dunk style plays in the hurry-up offense that Doug Peterson was kind of alluding to with when Chip Kelly was here and when Nick Foles was flourishing during that 2013 season. But I look at that and I also remember and take into heavy consideration that offensive line that year for the Philadelphia Eagles, pretty much lined up together every down and was as good as we've seen in quite some time here on this Eagles team as far as offensive lines are concerned. So I look at that, and that's, to me, a huge factor. Where it wasn't as much of an issue that Nick Foles lacked mobility. given those convenient circumstances that he had that year. The Eagles, they also had, in part to the offensive line as well, but they had the best running back that year in LaShawn McCoy, having a career year, went over 1,600 yards, led the league in rushing that year. So, and that's not to say that JHI is a stiff or, that they don't have a decent, I guess, trio of running backs with LeGarrette Blount and Corey Clement as well. But the offensive line was really a big part of that success that season. With that hurry-up offense, the quick passes out of Nick Foles. But see, the thing, again, I look at this and I lose confidence in that. Because already it's like you're admitting, they got to go dink and dunk. That the playbook is downsized due to the limitations of Nick Foles. That's the unfortunate thing about this all. With Carson Wentz, it's like anything was possible. Nick Foles, that's not the case. And, as we saw against the Oakland Raiders game on Christmas night, if the Eagles are not able to run the football, the Raiders, they were stacking the box that night. They were daring Nick Foles to throw. And I don't care, the weather conditions were bad and whatever. And, come on. Derek Carr did have a pretty nice pass when, Jalen Mills or whatever bid on that hitch and go on that play. And that was really a case where I went, how bad is the wind? I didn't look too much. I just think Nick Foles showed, he's not Carson Wentz. He's not the guy to get it done in the playoffs. That's what I look at that as. But that's, again, it just goes back to if they're stacking the box, and for the most part they're minimizing the running game and they're forcing Nick Foles to pass, they're daring him to pass. Well, again, the long ball is not in the Eagles' favor. So you got these short passes, whatever, the hurry-up offense. Maybe, you could try it. But again, if you're not moving the chains, as we've experienced with the Chip Kelly offense, especially in that third year, that offense isn't moving the ball in that hurry-up offense. The ball is going right back to the opposing team's offense, and your defense is going right back on the field. And you don't want to gas out the front seven because that's the strength of your defense. And ultimately, that'll make it even harder for the secondary. Just make it more difficult for the defense in general if you're not able to move the football. And again, this is with an inferior offensive line. It's been leaky this year. Jason Peters, that was a big loss. And we've seen the last couple of weeks bad mistakes, penalties. Lane Johnson, multiple holding calls against him. Got caught with their pants down against the Oakland Raiders. Not to mention, this team, Carson Wentz, he was like Mr. Third Down in the NFL. What were they, 1 for 14 on Christmas night? Not good. Not good. But nevertheless, Doug Peterson's saying, dust off some of these plays from a few years ago with, Nick Foles and the success he had under Chip Kelly. We'll see what happens.
I just felt comfortable, confident and comfortable.
Meanwhile, in Sixers basketball, ladies and gentlemen, the Sixers inching back towards 500 with a big win tonight over the San Antonio Spurs. Oh, yeah. How about Ben Simmons throwing up 26? See, that's the kind of offense you want to see out of Ben Simmons. You want to see him shoot the ball a little more. Good things will happen. And you know what? They certainly did in this game against one of the better teams in the league for so many years now. Sixers win 112-106 against the Spurs, who are 26-13 now. Again, Sixers now just one game under 500. Embiid's been out there, looking solid. As long as Embiid's out there, it's like they have a chance to do anything any given night. And I think this was an example of that. Ben Simmons throwing up some more buckets. J.J. Redick, getting his 20 a game or whatever, and there you go. Good stuff out of the 76ers. They got the Pistons on Friday night. Chance for the Sixers to get back to 500. We'll see what happens. And Markelle Fultz, he may finally be nearing this return to the Sixers. Maybe to debut. Will it happen this year? This season, I should say. He's cleared to begin his final stage of rehab from shoulder injury, as announced by the Sixers yesterday. There's no exact timeline for when he'll get back on the court. But again, he's been cleared for this to begin this final stage of rehab for his shoulder injury that has kept him out since late October. As per the Sixers' full release, quote, Philadelphia 76ers guard Markelle Fultz has been cleared to begin the final stage of his return to play program. The program consists of gradual reintegration into team practices and training, complemented with additional conditioning work to support fitness readiness for gameplay. Okay. I see. I got you.
Trust the process.
We'll see. It doesn't, of course, it doesn't say when he's going to play, if he's going to play at all this season. But at least there is some kind of, I feel like we've been left in the dark for quite some time in regards to Markelle Fultz. Fortunately now, Sixers shining a little bit of light on this. As, we're already kind of nearing the midpoint of the 2017-2018 NBA season. So, pretty good way to start off the new year, I guess you could say, in regards to that news and the Sixers with a win here over the Spurs tonight. Playing a little bit better basketball as of late with Joel Embiid in the fold after missing some games around Christmas time with some back tightness. We're going to take one more break here and then close out things in the Tyler Werner Show. Make my NFL wildcard round picks. And close things out here on the Tyler Werner Show. We'll be right back after this.
Hi there, I'm Hank Hill. Well, I'd like to tell you what Strickland can do to meet your energy needs. You see, at Strickland, the customer comes first. It's kind of interesting. The word customer begins with CU. Well, we don't see you as just another sale, but as a member of our team. I thought you might enjoy 7.5 gallons of pure premium propane. Strickland Propane, the customer comes first.
Attention parents. Is your under 18-year-old daughter being cyberstalked by a man who identifies themselves as a grown adult male?
I want to meet you and fool around. Are you up to meeting tonight, hon? I think I would like to shower with you. We can do it in the shower, too.
If so, you need to contact Chris Hansen and Company to bust these online cyberstalkers.
How are you tonight? Why don't you have a seat there and get comfortable for that? I guess you're going to tell me next that this is the very first time you've done something like this.
Chris Hansen and the Dateline crew will take care of it. Contact us and we will put an end to the cyber stalking that your daughter is experiencing.
Well, there's something you got to know. I am Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC, and we're doing a story on computer predators.
Busted!
And we return on the Tyler Werner Show on this edition. Sixers again. Good stuff out of them. With San Antonio Spurs. Flyers Thursday. Let's see if they can bounce back. Again, a bit up and down as of late. Last Thursday, losing to the Panthers 3-2. Then they bounced back and beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, leading the Eastern Conference. Beat them 5-3, and then unfortunately, the Wells Fargo Center, the vaunted Pittsburgh Penguins, come here, and the Flyers, an absolute dud of a loss, 5-1. I mean, against this Penguin. I mean, come on. These aren't the same Penguins we're used to either. This is a Penguins team that's not really any better than record-wise than the Flyers. I mean, they're right there side by side in that division pretty much. They get handed a 5-1 loss. Couldn't really muster up any offense whatsoever in that game. Flyer, I mean, let's see here. I don't know how many I don't know what the shot count was here, but Jordan Wheel with the lone goal for the Philadelphia Flyers. With Manning and Radko Gudas on the assists there for that. So, Flyers, see what they can do on Thursday against the New York Islanders. And then they got the St. Louis Blues coming up on Saturday, 1 p.m. game. Sunday, another 1 p.m. game. When they host the Buffalo Sabres, I would think and hope they win that. And then they have almost a week off until they take on the New Jersey Devils in the following game then. So, see what the Flyers can do. See if they can bounce back and beat the New York Islanders this coming week. All right, so it is Wild Card Weekend this weekend. Hard to believe, like another regular season in the NFL has come and gone, and so we're on to the playoffs. Some relatively interesting games this week. I'd say, in particular, a little more so with the NFC than the AFC. So, as we do, let's pick the wild card rounds. Or wild card round games, I should say. One wild card round, not multiple wild card rounds. But I think you get the point. So let's start with the New Orleans Saints, 4 seed, division winners of the NFC South, hosting the Carolina Panthers. Both teams finished 11-5 this season. I give it to the New Orleans Saints. I think I kind of teased this earlier. Eagles taking on the Saints. And in effect, that kind of spoils my picks. That kind of spoiled my picks, I guess I should say. But I go with the Saints again. Saints have more of a running game. I mean, that Alvin Kamara, great selection by the New Orleans Saints. Relatively later in the draft, mind you. So they got Michael Thomas, great receiver. Drew Brees, Their defense is improved compared to what we've seen in recent years. And Panthers, I don't know so much what they have off. I mean, they got Jonathan Stewart at running back. And Cam Newton, again, he's been a bit up and down this season. And I don't see them in New Orleans getting a win by any means. So I picked the Saints to win that game. And then, as I kind of spoiled again, the Los Angeles Rams, the 3 seed, will be hosting the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons got to go east to west here. And I have the Los Angeles Rams winning this game. I know some people are saying, well, the Falcons are a bit more of a playoff experienced team. This Rams team doesn't have any playoff experience. And, well, I just think overall, Rams are a better team. I mean, again, Jared Goff, he's been second-year growth was very good. Todd Gurley has been tearing it up on the ground this season. Their defense has been stout for the most part. And, again, this is an east to west trip here for the Falcons. You know, they eked their way into the playoffs. Don't quite think they're as solid as they were last year. So I take the Rams here. No surprises here. And that would ultimately lead to the Vikings hosting the Rams the following week in the divisional round playoffs. And, of course, the Eagles hosting New Orleans Saints here at Lincoln Financial Field. Well, not at Lincoln Financial Field. I'm about an hour or so away from being at Lincoln Financial Field itself. But anyhow, that's the NFC. AFC Wild Card Weekend matchups. We, of course, had the Kansas City Chiefs, the 4th seed, hosting the 5th seed Tennessee Titans, 9-7. 9-7 was able to get it done as far as wild card spots in the AFC this year. And I have the Chiefs of Kansas City with Coach Andy Reid getting it done.
Let's go have a ham sandwich.
You know, they certainly had that midseason slump, but they've been, as of late, they've been on point. Again, here, if you want to use the playoff experience, Chiefs are in the playoffs again. They're no strangers in this situation. And I think they got a little bit more weaponry than the Titans. Not to sell the Titans short, though. Titans are a solid wild card team. But, I mean, they could turn the ball over, too. I mean, of all the playoff teams, they're the only ones with a negative turnover differential. So, that, and it's the Kansas City, it's Arrowhead Stadium they're playing at. So, I take the Chiefs here with Andy Reid. Big Red, as they say, to move on to the next round. And who will they face? Well,
time's yours.
That'll depend who wins between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, first playoff appearance in 17 years. That's right. 17 years. Playoffs for the Buffalo Bills.
Playoffs?
That's right. This is the game that I'm most torn about. Because the Jaguars, as of late, have been a little iffy. I mean, their defense, for the most part this season, has been, the best in the league. But I look at, how did they give up 44 to the 49ers? And they struggled against the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. I mean, I know it was a desperate Tennessee Titans team, but What the heck was that? Bills, on the other hand, I think they're a little motivated. First playoff appearance in all these years. And although they've struggled against the New England Patriots as of late, they beat the Dolphins twice. And they have beaten the Chiefs as well during the midseason slump. Bills, I'm not so sure about how they're going to handle this game. But in upset fashion, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is both teams are playoff inexperienced. I mean, it's been a while since the Jaguars were in the playoffs as well. But I'm feeling the Buffalo Bills. This is one of these things too, one of these picks of mine, where I ask myself, is every home team going to win? Because otherwise it's my picks are very vanilla. Not that I'm picking just because not that I'm picking the Bills just because a road team's got to win. Just for this, because I can't have every. I believe in the past there's been weeks where I've picked every home team just because I felt that was the case. I kind of wonder with the Jaguars, in recent weeks how they played. You whimper in the playoffs. A lot of times you whimper out. Kind of like I unfortunately feel like that's what will happen with the Eagles. Not just because, they've lost a lot, but, well, not that they lost a lot, but Foles has not looked good the last two. And what he's bringing to the table, I just don't think is going to cut it. Here with the Jaguars, they lost 2 straight heading into the playoffs. One against a desperate Titans team, I understand that. But the other one, head scratcher against the 49ers. I don't know. Niners have been better as of late, granted, but still. I have an inkling that the Buffalo Bills are going to pull off, I guess, a bit of an upset. So we'll see what happens. Those are my round 1 picks, my wild card weekend picks. It's still early. I mean, if somebody got it, has some kind of sudden injury or something, I could obviously throw things into a tailspin or something. LaShawn McCoy, what if he got hurt or something in practice? But not that that's happening or anything. But we'll see what happens. Tyrod Taylor pretty solid against the Miami Dolphins this past week. Then again, I'm looking here at the box score for that game, and they had 2 other running backs, obviously, that produced where LaShawn McCoy was 11 carries for 10 yards. So I don't know what the case was there, but just randomly looking around here with box scores and whatnot. But with those picks in the books for this week, that's going to do it for the Tyler Werner Show. Wild card picks. I got the Saints moving on, facing the Eagles. Got the Rams moving on to face the Vikings at Minnesota. The Buffalo Bills as the 6th seed, meaning they would go on to face the New England Patriots once again. And the Chiefs to move on and then face the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I believe was the same matchup as last year when the Steelers defeated the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm pretty sure that was the case. Unless I'm thinking the year before or something. I think maybe the year before it was the Patriots who beat the Chiefs. That's right. Because then Doug Peterson was hired here, and we were questioning his decision making with the clock, when time management, when you're facing Tom Brady in the playoffs and about to lose to Bill Belichick and Brady in the playoffs.
To me, those balls are perfect.
So I kind of have I'm spoiling things here, I guess. Let's not spoil too much, I guess. But I think you know where I'm going with these playoff predictions in the AFC. Kind of a two-horse race in my eyes, kind of like it was last year. All right. That'll wrap things up on the Tyler Werner Show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time on the Tyler Werner Show and break down who the Eagles' opponent will be in that matchup and whether or not the Eagles, in fact, will have somewhat of a chance. Stay tuned for next week.